Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. The man should not think he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all he does. Rejoice in our trials. That's a tough one, you know. I look back at my life, and I look back at the darkest period of my life, and there was not much rejoicing going on then. Now I can look back and go, that made me who I am. And so I can be glad I've gone through it. But it's a lot different looking back at it than it was when it was happening. I read a literary commentary, and they were talking about the different types of literature. And they came to adventure stories. And they said, an adventure story is a bunch of terrible things that happen to somebody else. You know, you look at what they go through and you're like, wow, they're so great for doing that and for going through that. Boy, I'm so glad that wasn't me. But the truth is, as I told the children, we have this thing in life we call growing pains. And we have physical and mental and spiritual growing pains. When my son Robert grew the 3 inches in a week, the doctor said, I have one thing I can try, and if it works, we won't have to do surgery. He goes, now, it's going to hurt him, but the surgery is going to be even more painful. And we got these braces for his legs that he had to put on every night that stretched out his tendon. And it was so hard for him not to take his braces off in the middle of the night, because it hurt having them on, having those tendons stretch. But we knew it was going to hurt him more if he didn't stretch them out. Because if they didn't stretch, they were going to break. He was going to tear them. I knew another child, he grew even faster. He grew 6 inches in one summer. And his bones grew so and his legs grew so fast that he tore all 3 ligaments in both knees, just from the bones stretching. Those are severe examples of growing pains, but they happen. In life, we have growing pains. And it's funny, if we read the biographies of those we would call great people, they had growing pains. They had to overcome challenges before they could be great people. My favorite example is George Washington. George Washington grew up basically as a farmer, plantation owner, and he wasn't very good at it. So he decided he was going to study to be a surveyor, and he's going to make money going out into the wilderness and surveying lands for settlement. He did that about 2 years. And then he got a commission in the Virginia militia. They sent him out to what is now Pennsylvania, and he ran into a force of Frenchmen and got beaten. And he retreated, and his men built a little fort, and the French came up and they beat him again. Well, they sent him home, and he and his militia joined with the British Army to go out and take care of these pesky Frenchmen. And they're defeated 3 times. Then the American Revolution comes out, and George Washington decides he really wants to be involved in it as a general. And Congress makes him a general. And they give him the job of defending New York City. And the army fights a series of battles in New York City, and Washington loses every single one of them. And it wasn't until the night of Christmas Eve, 1776, when he led his small force of survivors and people who hadn't deserted him across the Delaware River, and he wins the Battle of Trenton. And that changes things. But everything up to that point that he had tried to do, he had failed at. But what did he learn from that? All those failures? He learned not to quit. He learned what he could survive. And the next winter, 1777, when his army was camped at Valley Forge, they needed a commanding officer who knew how not to quit. Every failure he had been through made him the right man for the job at Valley Forge. He knew that he could withstand it, the difficulties. He knew how to keep his spirits up when everything looked terrible. FDR, stricken with polio as a child, basically crippled his entire adult life. He learned through hard work how to stand again. He developed the strength to be able to walk 8 steps. I read a biography of his and said he never took more than 8 steps to get to a podium. He couldn't do it. But the strength that he was given by his fight against polio gave him the strength that was needed to lead this country through World War II. Every great person went through hardship, faced trials before they became a great person. I look at my life, I look at what I've gone through. Things I never wanted, And as I told God when he called me to be a pastor, I said, this is why I don't want to be a pastor, because these things are going to happen to me. Now, I don't know how God ever convinced me to be a pastor, because he never said, no, they won't. And if I had known everything that was going to happen to me because I accepted the call to ministry, before I had accepted the call to ministry, I wouldn't have accepted it. But every trial, he was there to guide me through. Every obstacle, he was there to lift me over. Or he moved it out of the way for me. He didn't remove the obstacles from my life. But together, God and I overcame all of the obstacles in my life. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it was difficult. But I am a better pastor for it. I am a stronger person for it. And my faith in God is greater for it. There's no such thing as failure unless you fail to grow from it, unless you fail to learn a lesson. The greatest example of this is Thomas Edison. Now, contrary to popular belief, Thomas Edison did not invent the light bulb. However, light bulbs were very expensive to make. And Edison decided he wanted to make a light bulb that would be profitable to make. So he knew the basic design of a light bulb and what was required to make it light up was a certain filament between the two ends of the electrodes. Well, he didn't know what filament to use. Now, he had placed a wager that he would be able to light up the Buffalo World's Fair with electric light. And he'd done this about 90 days before the Buffalo World's Fair. And it's like 85 days have passed. And he's tried over 100 different filaments. And some of them he puts in and they put the power to the light and the light bulb just explodes. Others, they turn the power on and nothing happens at all. And finally, one of his workers comes to him and says, "We've done it. We found the one, our 150th attempt." And it was a cotton thread. He failed 149 times to make a profitable light bulb before he learned to make one that was profitable. So many times in my life I failed. But every failure has taught me something. At the very least, it's taught me not to do that again. I look at my life. Every line on my face, every scar on my body has made me who I am. Every pain has made me stronger. Every lesson learned has made me wiser. And every trial that God has overcome for me has made me live closer to Him and made my faith stronger. rejoice in the midst of them. 'Cause I know from experience how hard that is. But be thankful that God is helping you grow. Our closing hymn is number 766.